when Robert takes the pacifier out of your mouth, he doesn't give you another one.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, John. That's great. I love that. That's what it comes down to. You take the pacifier out, and then you're just here. And there's nowhere else you can get to. This is it. Everyone hears those words repeatedly. And I guess I'm just repeating them. It's nothing original with me.
It's like riding on water. I think your book, to a large degree, is, I mean, when I read John's book in that 3 words, now is the self, and in your book, the expansion on it verbally to be able to get people from all different walks of perspectives to be able to question their perspective into now themselves is what makes the book very interesting, because as John just said, it's about inspiring self-inquiry, which is really looking at our own presence right now. And that's very difficult to do. And I think in your book, what you did was you took all general angles and alluded to here and now. And of course, you know, I'm in total agreement because I run around and I focused on the word now and then threw it out. And it started with John, and I think your book covers a lot of areas in that way, because it always resolves to here and now. And of course, with the thing with Rick Archer, you just said, which was simply, what about now? And that's so hard, because no one just really wants to be here right now. They always want to be either someplace they were or someplace they want to be, and never satisfied with the present moment. And the thing that I also realized, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on that. They don't want to be here because now is where all the pain is.
Which is self-inflicted.
Well, be that as it may, self-inflicted or inflicted by the gods.
Zeus?
Doesn't really matter. See, all that's the chit-chat. Nobody really knows anything about all that. Where it's all coming from, where it's all headed, it's above our pay grade, I'm afraid.
You mean you can't have a subscription to the pain? It seems that some people have a subscription to pain in the present, and that if they let go of the idea that they are bound by that, they wouldn't have to look in the past or the future. Just being there can't really be pain if you're really there. Or if there is pain, then you can accept it.
I look at it as balance. If you're in balance with now, then you're perfectly at peace. If you're out of balance with now, you have pain.
Robert?
I had pain when they replaced my shoulder. It hurt like hell.
Yeah, because they rebalanced your shoulder.
Well, they cut through nerves and bone and sawed and drilled holes down my bone and everything else. And it hurt like you couldn't believe.
Sure.
It wasn't a mental, it wasn't just a mental I was doing to myself. Pain is pain, it's real.
But that was about balance. It was to rebalance the surgery was to rebalance an unbalanced problem in your body. And the surgery was to rebalance that. And even now you're going through physical therapy to get balance back in your shoulder and arm.
It was to replace the worn out part. It wasn't about balance.
So it has to be balanced. It was replaced.
Well, forgive me, David. John, what I understood you to be saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is of course pain exists. You know, only a fool would deny that. That's what I heard. Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
John,
Yes.
you were saying pain is pain, right?
Yes, that's correct. Pain is pain. Whether it's balanced or you deserve it or it's the other side of this or karma, none of that matters to me. When something hurts, it just hurts, and then you manage it with what's at hand.
Oh, okay.
And the older you get, the more pain. In
Yes.
my case,
That's what the Buddha taught.
I don't avoid.
Old age, illness, and death. The Buddha called it old age, illness, and death. So I accept that. I know you do. So
Yes.
Robert, I don't know if you hear me.
I see you,
Paloma,
Paloma.
you see me? You hear? Yep. Hola, ¿qué tal?
Hola, Paloma.
I have a question actually, and we're talking about pain, and I guess more like physical pain. But in the what I wanted to ask you, Robert, and I think I've done it before at some point in different ways. But again, I stumble upon the same thing to do with, suffering, emotional suffering, not only, the one that you could say is provoked also when I see people who I love suffering. So my question is from the point of view of presence, or whatever you want to call it, how do we deal with that, with emotional suffering or despondence, powerlessness, or even fear of the future? I mean, those really strong emotions, how do we deal with them now? Thank you.
Hi, Paloma. What a great question. I don't really think there's a how. I think that sooner or later, one is going to see that there's no alternative to what you feel. You just feel what you feel. There's nobody making any of that, and no one's in control of it. That's just the way it is in this moment. I think that's about as far as I can go with replying to your question. Although I know that traditionally that question is answered by giving you a practice, like if you find yourself getting upset, breathe deeply. Okay, I guess you know that. But beyond that, sit quietly, breathe deeply, and try to collect yourself. Beyond that, someone just entered the set. Who's that? Kirsten.
Yeah, sorry, that was loud.
No, it's not a problem. How are you, Kirsten?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry I'm late.
You're not late. Here you are. So to go back to Paloma's question. What you feel is not a choice. It's the only now there is. As it arises, it's passing away again. This is a flow, and your feelings are always in flux. If you know that because you've heard me say it and you've looked for a place like that in your own experience, someone who knows that all of this is just passing, that we're here for our brief moment, we do our little dance, and then we pass away again. These things may really seem much less serious.
But
This
you know how easy, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go
You know
ahead.
how our first, yeah, you know how we kind of have this, we bounce the ball of suffering, as it were, through rebellion. Kind of, okay, we are feeling really this very strong emotion, and we create an even stronger one, which could be anger or rebellion. So we in a way we deal with it. So I don't really know whether or not it makes it worse. Actually, sometimes I'm sure it makes it. We don't feel as bad because we feel that we are actually fighting it and we have a chance. But yeah. So what I'm saying is we are going to do something about it. And in hindsight, of course, you could say, well, fighting it, having this very rebellious attitude towards it, wrecking your head, trying to find a solution, the right thought to come out of the problem you're having right now, how to help someone who's refusing help or action to deal with their own emotional suffering. Well, that might not be a very good idea on in the long term. So what would be the difference between staying with the suffering, or as you said, dealing with it in the now? What's the difference between that and fighting back with other emotions, which are probably just a way of distracting your mind from what you're feeling at that point.
Okay.
What do you
Well, earlier, I don't know if you were here for that. Oz talked about, I think it was Oz, talked about strategy, arriving in a situation like this group, with a strategy that you were going to get something from it. And you're talking about the other side of it now. As I understood it, this isn't really about you. This is about someone else in your life, someone you care about. Is that right, Paloma?
I feel, yes. Can you hear me? I feel it's always a bit easier for me to deal with my own problems or pain. I feel more equipped than when I see someone around me suffering, which of course in the end it's me who feels bad about it. So those are my own emotions too.
Well, that's it. You just said it. Actually, what more do you need? You have no choice. It's your shit. There's not a how, but there's an approach, which is you don't take responsibility because you didn't cause this. But this is the hand that you've got to play. Not that you deserve to get this hand, God was punishing you or some story like that. But this is the way the cookie crumbled. You're sitting there with these feelings and these feelings towards other people. And it's yours. It doesn't belong to the other people. They only exist in your imagination. I don't mean this the way a solipsist would. A solipsist is someone who believes that nothing exists except me. I don't mean that. I've just lost the thread, but someone who is listening, fill me in here.
You were saying, you just said it. It's it has. I'm dealing with someone suffering, my partner having a really hard time at work, being bullied, which is
Okay,
actually the case.
now
I'm
you
trying to comfort.
I get it. So
All right,
without going into
you get it.
with yes, I got. I'm back on the track here. Without psychoanalyzing anything or making a how to fix it out of any of this. Prior to that, the trick, if there is a trick, I hesitate to call this a trick, is just to understand that what you're seeing is you. You're the only one who's seeing it. It's taking, all of these dramas are taking place. I don't mean the shit that's happening at work or whatever to your friend. All that may really be happening in its way. But the part that troubles you is not the events. The part that troubles you is your emotions. And it's hard to deal with them. And that's it. That's what you have to deal with. That's the job.
What do you say about, compassion, which is something that's been talked about a lot? That, okay, you see someone close to you suffering, and somehow if you exercise compassion, it's a kind of like catharsis. Because sometimes you can't do anything about them suffering and going through a tough time.
Well, earlier on, a few minutes ago, you mentioned compassion, and then at that point, you were questioning whether that's helpful or unhelpful. Do you remember that? This was a few minutes ago. What we call compassion may feel good, but it may be entirely misguided.
The donkeys.
I don't know if you can hear that. My donkeys know I'm up here, and
I hear them. I hear them.
they're outside. They want me. So what I'm saying is, there's compassion is another one of those words. It's good. Everybody wants to be compassionate. Nobody wants to lack compassion. But compassion without wisdom might do more harm than good. Like say you came upon an accident victim lying in the highway. Out of compassion, you might run over and pick this person up and try to put him in the back seat of your car and take him to the hospital. That would be compassionate, but it would be ignorant and stupid, because what you need to do is let the person lie right there until the experts who know how to handle injured people show up. So that's what I'm talking about. It's a concrete example. You can be a bleeding heart, and you can go through this world caring about other people's feelings and all of that. Yes, it might be helpful to someone at a certain time, and it might be very unhelpful to someone at another time, or it might depend on how you feel when you're being compassionate, which is like you're already doing something. See, what I'm trying to say, Paloma, is whatever you feel right now is yours. It doesn't belong to anyone else. You're the only one who's witnessing it. You're totally alone. Totally alone. You may wish through the bridge of compassion to actually crack through that and not be totally alone. I don't think that's feasible. I think that ultimately, since you asked me how to deal with this, and I'm taking you very seriously, I think you have to realize that if you don't deal with it, nobody else is going to. No one can. So your compassion needs to be, in my opinion, self-compassion first. Above all, self-compassion, by which I mean you see yourself in your human woundedness. And you understand that the idea of transcending all that is a kind of fantasy. And that there's no transcending because it's always now. And so whatever you feel now is only here for this brief instant, and you have to deal with it. In the next instant, there's a new now you have to deal with. You only have to do it bit by bit, moment by moment. You have to chew up your life bite by bite and swallow it. And sometimes you have barely enough saliva to get it down. I don't know if that illuminates your question or not. I hope so. Could you comment, please, Paloma?
Well, it's obviously it's what you say. It's, I think that the counteraction of reaction is just gonna be kind of like stay put and be there with the feeling. I'm not sure what happens with it. I mean, I've been in situations that were very tough. My dad dying and my brother, I was there at that very, well, throughout their illness and even at that very moment. And a moment that I feared, and when it happened, what I was actually experiencing was very different from what I had thought it was. I did feel some kind of what did you say? Transcending the feeling of fear or panic or extreme suffering. It was something else, more of a, I don't know, it was much more all-encompassing. You know, it was a very huge feeling with a lot of love involved. But yeah, when you see someone suffering and it keeps on happening and you are there and you know, as you're saying, it's bit by bit, moment by moment, and yeah, it resonates. So thank you.
I think I'm back on now.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I understood. There are these details, and of course they have to do with love. That's what's driving us. Wanting love and wanting to give love and receive love is very human in the very deepest way. I don't think it goes much deeper. And so that's clearly going to be the material, or at least part of it, in a thinking life, I suppose. We have to ask ourselves these questions constantly. But what I'm saying is, but what it really boils down to is that you fly like a paloma. and yes. And you live for yourself. That's when you can be compassionate and loving. But love is when you have something to give, after all. And what you have to give is yourself. Not you have to be all torn up because this person's going through bad times. That may be something you have to deal with, but that's not the actual love. The actual love is that even though this person's having a hard time, he or she is still okay with you. That's the love. I don't know if I'm making this clear. It's not your identification with this person's suffering that's really the loving part. The loving part is that you accept this suffering person as an important person. That's the loving. This is just my view, my perspective on it. I don't know if you agree with that. I'm no expert. In matters of the heart, I am no expert.
You know. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I think I'm catching on to hosting the meeting and being at the meeting.